Thank you very much for coming back, and this is after lunch. It's about 10 after 1. We are going to be running about 45 minutes past our time of 1 today to get through with one of the line items on their expenditures facilities. But I'd like to, before I start, Pam Holt is our finance director, and she's been in Florida with her mother, and she drove back today, so we welcome her back. And we're glad that you got out of Florida, because we understand there's a lot of weather going on down there. But it's a long drive back. Next time, maybe fly. It's just a long drive, I know. But I'm glad you got back safely, and it sounds like good news for your mom. Still keeping her and you and your family in our prayers. I'm glad you're back. Let's turn to facilities. We have Milford Smith here today, our facilities director, and Mr. Smith. And there's been a lot of work going on in facilities. And this line item, we want to go ahead and just take the remainder of our time on facilities. And at this time, Mr. Smith.
Yes, sir. I've got to reposition here.
$42.60.
Yeah. On the 4260, if you refer to, as we, and the sheet on that blue, the 1, 2, 3, 4th blue column, this is just showing you some differences where we're actually, I guess, at this point, 116,000. But what did we put back in there? Is that on here? Have you altered that? Do you remember? 416. Did you change and then you give me this?
Now he said,
Let's see if we, just want to say, because we did make some alterations at the last minute when we were, it's at 653. Yeah, this reflects the 5061530, so that's in there then. So it's up 116. All right. So we did add that back. Obviously, the departments, you know, they did make requests and they had things they recommended, and of course, as budget officer and manager, I have recommended some alterations to the budgets. And in looking at 4260, let's just see, do you have any other big notes on changes on this one, Milford? I mean, Milford, come on up while we're talking about it to see if there are really any major changes. I know one was on 190, which was professional services. That was one. That's on 190, and Milford can talk to you about that. That was a big item that we chose to leave there. I think we've talked about some studies and things that we may need to do, particularly as it relates to like health and DSS and some other professional services that we may need help on. So I'd like maybe him to talk about that 190, because that was a big item.
190 would increase $100,000.
I asked of Mr. Smith, and he gave me the approval to hire a project coordinator who happens to be a licensed general contractor. This year, we're going to have a lot of projects that we're going to need some professional services to design that we'll build in-house, or else we'll sub them out. So that $100,000 will save us considerable money, millions, possibly.
Can I query on?
Mr. Daugherty.
Am I understanding that you have hired him at a rate of 100,000? Are you?
No.
So he's not going to be an employee?
No, he is our employee. He's a salaried employee. The $100,000 will cover any of the design fees that we might need to get an approved design for us to build.
We've got, so as part, now I told you earlier that as far as capital expenditure and looking at, and as we discussed in our facilities sessions and committee, we talked about health DSS, renovations at DRC and the Sullivan Building. Those renovations will require an engineered stamp. I mean, they'll have to go through state construction. So we try to incorporate in this budget our ability, and for Milford to be able to bring somebody in to do some of that. This gentleman would oversee these projects, but you're going to have an engineer. So in order to do some of these things, the pre-engineering work, we needed to have some money in there. We usually build that into just capital, but we said, no, we got to be honest about this. That's a real professional service, and let's just say if that's the cost, that's the cost. And it's an estimate. But if we chose to go forward with like the health and DSS, 50,000 square feet, we have to begin with some design or something. Even if we do design build, we got to at least spec it out. That's going to cost a little bit of money. So that's part of why we put that in there.
Okay, I understand.
Yeah.
See, when we hire a design team, they design a project, but they also manage that project. And you have a monthly fee like we know about. Once we pay our $8,000 or $10,000 to design whatever it might be, they're through. We manage the project ourselves. Currently, his license is good for $500,000. And I haven't spoken to Mr. Smith about his length, but he can qualify the county to possess an unlimited general contractor's license with our balance sheet, using our balance, our auditor's report. So technically, we could do any size project we wanted to in-house and manage it ourselves.
And these fees are just for the design phase?
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, that's one of the things that's been missing for a while is over the few years is because we can take on a lot of these projects as Milford Smith has already said, and one of these is just happened recently. We've decided that the county office building, the roof, we're going to do that ourselves. We're going to sub it out ourselves. Now that we have a facilities director, there's not a reason why we can't handle a lot of these projects on our own. And that's the ultimate goal is to get the staff necessary to not only look at the future projects, but to get the existing facilities back in shape the way they should be. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other questions?
As you look through this budget, one of the things that Milford's looked really hard at is on our electricity usage. I mean, we're doing the best we can. He's making changes in some buildings trying to reduce those costs, but that's obviously one of those that you can only do so much and cut so many lights off. Trying to retrofit lighting systems, doing that, so you'll see some slight increases in areas of like 331 electricity. We went to right at $500,000 on 351. You want to talk about 351?
Let's go to, wait a second. Before we move on,
Okay,
on electricity.
yes.
In 2010-11, the budget was $667,000. The budget in 11-12 was $625,000. But the amended budget was $731,000. So we're up to $731,000 you're asking for. 2008 went to a 4-day work week, and the reasoning for a 4-day work week was to save electricity. So I would like to see, I'm not bringing up the 4-day work week issue, I'm just bringing up the cost of electricity. So if we could, I'd like to see 07, 08, 08, and 9.
Okay.
9 and 10 electricity,
Absolutely.
please, those 3 years. Okay, Mr. Mayor.
It's, I have a question on 351 and 352. 351, I see we have a lot of maintenance and repairs of equipment, maintenance and repair of buildings and grounds. I see this in several areas. How about explaining the 351? It's up, but how about explaining what that entails,
Okay.
if you would?
Most of our buildings, we have reached a point in time in its life cycle. For example, when you leave here today and you see the carpet in the lobby or on the stairwells, it's got to be replaced, especially the stairwells. It's actually a trip hazard. We have those conditions that are pretty much generally all over the county. We just got to do some replacements. It's time.
Question, do you have specific buildings that these need to take place?
Yes.
So we can tie the expense into that particular building?
Yes, and as we spend that money, it'll be charged out to that building.
So you've already got it estimated, of which building?
What's not estimated is in process, right?
Okay, you have, well, the reason I'm asking, where's the 500,000? Have you had it, do you have it estimated, the buildings to use the $500,000 in at this time?
Yes and no. Okay, it's actually more than that. Okay? I can't responsibly spend more than that this year. I mean, there's only so much work that can be done in a calendar year. Next year, it won't be as high, but there will be some still left to do, some painting, carpet, some upgrades. And 352 is the equipment side. Like at the county office building, I need to replace 15 units that are in excess of 20 years old. That's the 7 to 10 tons air conditioning, heat pumps. It's just time to do it.
So you're saying in 352 then on equipment, the county office building needs the $750,000?
No. That's just a general term for all of our buildings.
The county office building needs 20?
15 units.
Have you got a price on the 15 units?
Yes. We competitively priced them.
Approximately how much?
I don't have that. It's a lot.
He actually went, facilities, we actually went through, he has sheets, and the chairman, myself, Milford, and staff went through them. He actually has sheets built out for every building. He went through and did basically life cycle on machinery, equipment, HVAC, carpeting, and he's detailed that out, and then he put it in columns as to what year it would hit, and then came up with the figure. Now, I backed the figure off some and said, and then he backed off too and said, there's only so much I can do, because he's trying to catch that up, but he actually has it listed too, because what we will do is, even though it will be charged out of 351 or 350, depending on what it is, we will actually give it a code to say for X building. Because one of the things that you wanted from facilities, as I understand it, is to be able to equate what is our real cost on a facility. And that's part of what we're trying to do.
Okay.
As far as my estimates, Mr. Chairman, these estimates were put together prior to us getting the licensed contractor so that we could do a lot of things in-house. Don't mean that it's inflated. It's just that I think we're going to realize real savings by having our own person in-house that will take care of these things.
Okay. Mr. Mayor?
This line item 351, am I correct in understanding that that is for projects that are below $5,000 each? Is that?
Most of what we were doing in 351 wouldn't qualify as a capital project.
Okay,
It would be considered just normal maintenance and repair.
okay. The second question is that in 352, is that the line item where we have the spare parts that we need? Is that the item?
That's got to be built up, that's right.
Okay, that's in that 750.
That's 352.
Okay, as it stands right now, from what I've seen, we have very, very few spare parts
I have,
for some of these older pumps and so forth that we have.
with any certainty, I can't stand here and tell you that I can make, for instance, a jail. I can't make that mechanical system. I can't guarantee you that I can keep it running uninterrupted because there's no spare motors, there's no spare bearings, the plumbing system needs a lot, the locks, I mean, there's no inventory there to work with. And I feel like we need to build that back up.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Is there any other questions?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Pate?
just a question on the next page, 580, building structures improvement. What's the difference between that and maintenance repair buildings on 351?
As I understand it, and Mr. Smith can probably address this better than I, but as I understand it, the capital project needs to increase the value of an asset. Okay? 351 is just maintaining your asset. It's not going to increase the value of it. Is that fair to say?
How else would you classify for new or for
And
paint?
the project has to cost more $5,000.
Right.
And the $5,000 one, that's where that comes out of.
Right. But see, if we replace the carpet throughout this courthouse, okay? That's
It
certain,
has to extend the life of the asset.
So
Not
the build-
just not repair or replace what's already there.
right.
The building structure improvements are projects above $5,000, is what you're saying?
If we added a floor to the top of the courthouse, that would increase the value of the asset. That would be a capital
Yes.
project.
That'd be more 5,000.
No, we've been, yeah,
Okay.
we don't know what we want.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayo?
In that line 580, since we've made the change on the county office building, the roof, that we're going to take care of that ourselves, am I understanding correctly that that is not included in this figure that we're looking at?
No, we've got money here for the roof at the COD.
Okay.
Okay.
It's included.
Now, if we don't manage it ourselves, if we don't project manage that job, it's going to go above probably what we allocated in our whole roof package. And we could still do it, but it would cut down on the money that we had for another roof maybe that we needed.
Instead of being able to do 3 or 4 projects, being able to do 2.
Right.
Okay. All right. I have one other question. In the line item 2 above that, 510, capital outlay for equipment, I see that it basically since 2011 and 12 more than doubled. Can you give me some insight?
Yes,
as
I
to
can.
What that entails?
That is actually 2 projects. We had some engineering problems at the jail with the original design. The chillers weren't dependable. The piping was done wrong. The piping inside the basement of the jail was actually higher than the cooling tower. So anytime the chiller cut off for whatever reason, you might spend 6 or 8 hours trying to get it to prime back.
Prime
And as a result, the chillers weren't brought down for normal maintenance and repair. You had to run them because you didn't know if you could ever get them started back. So we come up with a project to reconfigure the piping, make it so that, for example, we need to be cutting off once a month to clean the cooling towers because leaves, debris get in there, and that is pumped through our chillers. Well, if you can't cut your chillers off, you can't clean the cooling tower. So, I mean, there's a lot of problems there, and matter of fact, I just got some more quotes yesterday to put an inline strainer in that water system so that we don't have to shut the chillers down to get the trash out. That strainer will collect it. Since the mechanical system was installed, the chill water pumps, the circulating pump, had never been repaired, never been rebuilt. We've gotten quotes for that. We're going to rebuild it. They're 22 years old, and pumps don't last forever. Somehow or another, in the past 5 years, the water treatment contract got dropped. So we've got to get a water treatment contract back going to preserve the life of not only our chillers, but our cooling tower. Also, as you know, I'm not going to say I'm short-staffed. I think we're probably close to being where we need to be now, but as spread out as we are, if you're having a meeting in here and you're too hot, and you have Marcia call, they come cool off the commissioners' meeting, I have to send somebody here to do it. Okay, there's a computer system downstairs that they have to get on, and they can raise or lower the temperature or the airflow as they need to. Same thing with the Borden building and the Jeffries building. And so we came up with a project to, as an addition to the computer system that's existing here, we've added a system to it so that I can go on my iPad or anywhere that's internet capable, and I can make changes or diagnose a problem with the system from wherever I'm at that I got internet. We'd also like to incorporate that with the new Steel Library. But anyway, all those projects together came up to $143,000.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor.
As I understand, in talking to Doug Lancaster out at the Jetport, am I correct in saying that we got, how many acres we have to mow out there at the Jetport?
It's about 100 acres.
It's pretty close to 100.
And that falls under your, as facilities
Yes.
director, that falls under you?
Yes.
And I understand that Doug, do we have any equipment out there at the airport that we can use to
Yes.
mow?
Mhm.
Well, to mow 100 acres, how long does it take?
It takes two of my guys about 2.5 days. Now, it's not cut every week.
Right.
The FAA don't recommend that you keep grass around the airstrip. You know, they want it to be 5 or 6 inches high.
Yeah.
But we do about every 2 weeks, 3 at the most, we do have to go out there and cut it. At some point, I got estimates on having an outside vendor do it. They came in pretty high, except for one. And that's something that he and I are going to discuss. He and I both been so busy about it, we haven't had time to talk about a lot of things. But grounds man hours are an issue. And I don't want to put on more people.
So how many grounds people do you have?
4.5. One of my grounds guys is also my licensed wastewater collection.
She works
operator.
half of one, half of the other.
Oh, I thought you were counting yourself as a half.
No, that's only about a third.
Okay, all right, thank you, appreciate it.
Any other questions, comments?
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Donner?
Milford, what I'm seeing here between line 351, 352, and 580 is about $2 million, $1.9 million. And I'm understanding that we need to do this. My question is, are we replacing currently operating chillers or
No.
units?
The chillers aren't being replaced.
Air conditioning
Yes,
units,
we are
even though-
replacing some, like at the COB, those 15 units I was speaking of. The reason we want to do them wholesale at one time is, number one, pricing. Number two, looking at the electricity usage that we were just speaking about. A new unit will operate for about 2/3 of what a 25-year-old unit will operate for. So there's a good payback in going ahead and just updating.
So it's a cost savings to go ahead and get it all done at one
In the
time,
long- in
and
the
then
long
your
term,
utility cost goes down.
Right, and dependability.
Of course,
You know, and if you only have 1 or 2 guys that can work on air conditioning, and with as many, you know, we've got over 1 million tons of cooling.
and that would all be actually bidded out.
No, we
or-
buy the units.
We're gonna buy the unit.
I'm gonna buy the
actually-
units, and we'll hire somebody to install them on an hourly rate. There again, there's tremendous savings in doing that. Okay?
Okay. Well, I understand that basically we got some catch-up to do.
No, sir, we got a lot of catch-up to
And
do.
I assume we are having to increase our expenditures this year. I'm hoping next year that we can back off of some of it.
I'm anticipating we're catching up a lot this year. I really am. I mean, certainly, as far as the carpet and the flooring, roofs, we won't be doing that repetitiously next year, you know.
And I assume that you have gone through and given yourself some rough estimates to come up with these figures, or are we just
No.
throwing spaghetti on the wall?
No. For example, a roof. A roof can go from anywhere from $4 a square foot to $14 a square foot, depending on the roof that you want, how involved it is. And most of the time, I hit that middle of the range mark, because a lot's going to depend on, you know, if we want a single-ply roof, do we want a built-up roof, are we going to use the building for 5 years or 20 years? There are a lot of variables in there, so I try to hit the middle part.
Let me follow the question up differently then. Could you possibly trim $224,500 from this amount right here?
In which line, which line up?
The combined three items?
Could I?
Yes.
Yes.
And still meet
No.
your goal? Okay, well, let me qualify the question. Oh, it's $224,500. And could you trim that amount and still do the repairs that you are looking for to do in the next year?
Well, and there again, no. There's some things that are just written in stone.
So you have put a pen and a pencil to it and come up with a
I've got
realistic
spreadsheets for all of our buildings, yes.
for these amount of dollars.
Yeah, it's not a wag. It's a fairly educated guess, but maybe not.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Donner.
You finally picked up on it, didn't you?
I had it before you started.
Any further questions on facilities?
I got
Mr. Aycock and then Mr. Cromartie.
Let's go back to 331 just a minute, 731,000 for the electricity. I'm assuming that the new rate increase that the Utilities Commission got was considered.
Yeah, that's part of what
Okay.
we're looking at was the
Okay,
rating.
all right, that's what, that was, just want to
We
clarify
always try to
that.
look at that and try to see
Yeah.
what utility commission might or might not approve.
Yeah, because it was quite a substantial
It was.
increase.
If I could take just a minute.
That was the purpose for going back to 08, and looking at what the trend is.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
If I can go back to, and this relates to our electricity use, at the jail, the original design there called for fresh air intake, a lot of fresh air intake. And in this particular zone of the country that we're at, you got 6 or 7 months of the year where you don't need a lot of heat or air. You take fresh air in and dehumidify it a little bit. Well, that design didn't work. So that was shut off 15 years ago. Now, you couple that with, during the wintertime, we run the boiler and both chillers, because as I mentioned previously, you couldn't cut a chiller off because you didn't know if you could get it back running or not. So we run the boiler and both chillers 24/7. Now, by spending the money that we want to repair these mechanical systems and get them back running again, look what a savings we're gonna have.
Is that in your budget?
Those repairs? Yes.
Yes.
Which one is it?
That was the 143,000.
Which number is that?
510.
510.
Yeah, that's the one with spare parts.
That's why that one went up so much.
The electricity usage at the jail is going to drop dramatically. Dramatically.
Between the lighting project and that,
It's jail.
it really helped.
Those two chillers are 600 tons.
So that's the capital outlay equipment, that's for the jail? Okay.
Well, the entire 143 is not for the jail. The jail part was 73, and the upgrade to the computer systems was 70.
Was what?
70.
70?
70, that one.
Mr. Cromartie?
Yes, sir. Mr. Milford, I think maybe first time in your budget, first time I heard anything mentioned about when a person will get paid without getting professional services, and that's $100,000. I want to go back up to line 121, first line. I have a question. When you built your budget, did you build in anything for raise for the employees, cost of living raise?
Yes, I did.
What percent is that?
The housekeepers, excuse me, just a minute. I'm thinking the housekeepers were about a $1,200 a year raise.
About $1,200 a year.
And I also had some, I don't want to call them merit increases, but if you'll notice on my other budget, I increased the educational line item.
Okay.
Because I encourage my guys to go and get their different licenses. And I think we should, my plumber went and got his certification that he can test backflows. We spend about $5,000 a year with an outside contractor to test backflow preventers, okay? Now we can do that in-house. he took the initiative, we paid for the coursework, okay? I think we need to reward him a little bit for that. Those kind of issues.
I just wanted to be able to get a direct answer from a person who built an individual budget for the department. I want to congratulate you for looking at that for our employees. I further ask this question, Mr. Smith. Well, we expect to see that every department has done something similar.
They made requests. I did not approve them, and I did not recommend them. I only recommended 2 new positions in this budget, and that was in DRC for the electronic monitoring. No other increases were recommended.
And in any other departments?
Nope. I think the only thing I had was, I believe, the director of the senior center, because she was, I did recommend increase for the director because she was substantially below any director in our region. And, but other than that, none were recommended.
So, I still congratulate you on recommending a raise for the folk who are doing the work.
Thank you, sir.
But I also have a concern for anyone who's still having to buy bread, milk, gasoline, just like those employees are, and not recognized for the same opportunity. I want to just go back to, I think, a conversation that I heard several weeks ago. It may have involved human resource, because I think there was some raise or something that was recommended in that department. And I think I've always wondered after that, not having had the answer, whether they had gotten them or whether they were going to get them. Just as a closing note on that, I'm a skilled body repairman and painter, Mr. Miller. I always believe in working and getting paid.
Thank you. I do too.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Cromartie. Any other comments on facilities?
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman.
I'm sorry, Mr. Donnery?
I didn't really cover that, and thank you, Mr. Cromartie, for allowing me to focus in on that. But did I understand you to say that there were raises for housekeepers in this budget?
They're our very lowest classification.
And how many housekeepers was there?
We have 22.
22. And were there any reclassifications in this budget in regards to any employee reclassifications, which would be a raise?
I took my plant electrician, the county electrician, and assigned him to the jail. It was a voluntary. I asked him if he would consider it, and he consented to it. And he's doing a real good job. I need to make that worth his while, because that's not an easy job over there, you know. Day in and day out, that's very strenuous, mentally and physically. So I put in for him an increase.
Or reclassification?
Yes, it's a step up in pay, pay grade.
And that was the only reclassification?
That he requested, but was not approved.
Okay, I understand.
Okay, I just want to make sure I got it.
Did we approve or did we request or approve the increase for housekeepers?
He requested it, I did not recommend it.
I understand. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Donnery. Any other? Mr. Mayo?
Got one other thing I want to ask. How about giving us a summation of what your goals are for facilities? All of us commissioners have been to every facility in Wayne County, and we know the conditions that they are now. What can we expect from the facilities department, say 12 months from now? What are your goals for the next fiscal year, if you don't mind sharing?
Well, Commissioner, when I took over, we were halfway through the budget year, and having worked in that department, I knew the staff. We did not have the technical expertise that we needed, so I knew right away we were going to have to build a department. such as the capital project coordinator, a really good HVAC technician, and building that type staff takes a little bit of time, okay? I also recognize that our buildings were in a state that carpet gets this old and dirty, is not healthy, okay? In the next 12 months, we're gonna set about correcting, I'm not gonna say abuse, they're old buildings, you know, but we have to start spending money. If you recall, when I made my presentation, I called it cyclic replacement. We need to start budgeting money every year, realizing that there's a life cycle to everything in a building. Okay? That's what you can expect, is we're going to set about doing that. We'll identify high-cost issues. Once we get stable, once we get the boat from rocking, we'll start identifying high-cost issues, things to do to save money. That's, you know, every manager should have long-range plans. But right now, building my staff and going about, you know, I'm kind of up on the soapbox just a little bit, if you'll allow me. Wayne County, and there's one other county that can design build now. It's very important to me, not just Wayne County or myself, but to the whole state, that we make this work, because there is real savings for the taxpayers, whether it's Wayne County or North Carolina state taxpayers. There's real savings in design, build, contracting. I believe that as firmly as I do anything. We need to make that work. And thanks to him letting me hire the right people, we're going to do that.
Any other, Mr. Daugherty?
My understanding that the current legislation on design build ends in 2014, next year,
Sunset.
December.
sunset December.
14.
And the other question I have, Milford, is have we completed the changeover of the furnace from oil to gas? I think that's in the
No, it's not
Jeffries
complete.
building.
We have the gas lines run, the burner is being fabricated. There's about a 3-month lead time on those burners now, because remember the hurricane that came, or the northeaster that went through the north a few months ago?
Yeah.
Every basement in that whole New York tri-state area had boilers in it. So they're making their boilers new again.
Well, that's-
Ours is in process of being fabricated.
Well, that's another huge savings that, for
Absolutely.
us as well, and I congratulate you on that.
And then, you know, that's what I'm trying to look at. We had capital project money to replace that boiler. But looking at the boiler, it didn't need replacing. It just needed to convert to natural gas when you burn it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Any other comments? Okay, I guess it's my time to comment. Cyclic, good term and good vision. And I commend you for coming in and taking over what I consider such a mess. It's my time now. I guess, you know, I'm going to tell you the way I feel. So you know, I'm looking at it as something that I've been watching over the last 5 years, and I've seen it undermanned. I've seen it understaffed. I've seen $1 million buildings that would cost to replace buildings today into $20 and $30 million just been absolutely neglected. And, you know, I only had one vote, and I'm not going to go too far because Mr. Bell's just left. And that's with a good heart, because I told him we wouldn't do much here after he left, because I wanted him to be part of the conversation. And I would say that with him sitting here, and he knows that, because we've discussed it. But to take this year and look at 2 years ago, when I thought it was understaffed at 756,000, you've got it at 923,000. So that first sheet is indicating to me that you've got approximately 200,000 more salaries. You've got 2,000 more in that 1,500 in overtime. You've got extra help. You've added, that's 300%. You've added, you're up to 37,000 from 11,000. In Social Security, you've gone from 47,000 to 60,000. In Medicare, you've gone from 11 to 14. Retirement contributions, you've gone from 49,000 to 66,000. And hospitalization insurance contributions, 187,000, 237,000. So that first sheet there, is I'm looking at probably $600,000 in 2 years, just in labor alone. Now, if I take that $600,000 over 2 years, and as a business person, try to find out, okay, if it was 2 years ago at that price, what is it compared to today? And then I add $100,000 for a project coordinator. Well, that's all, I guess, that sort of lays out your manpower, your manpower for your vision to do what you want to do. And then I look over to the next sheet, and then here comes the maintenance and the hard cost for buildings and grounds, and of course repairs. So we're taking labor, we got labor over here. I guess my concern is that I'm not real certain, even though I'm on the committee, the facilities committee, I guess I just need a prettier picture, or better, more detailed, call it analytical, whatever, but to me, I know we've got, how many facilities? Have we got 28? Have we got 32?
We've actually got 42.
Okay, 42. We got 42 buildings, and as I look at your vision and hear what you're saying, I look at the electricity, $750,000. I look at the building and grounds, $500,000. And remember now, this. I wish, and off the subject, Mr. Smith, it'd be nice to do percentages, because I work off of percentages. If it's a 2% or 8% or 30% or 100% increase, when I look at electricity from 667 to 731, what is that? If we get one commissioner said, if we get a 1.5% utilities increase, then, and if that's the norm across the nation or across the state, if the Utilities Commission says we're going to raise your rates 2.5%, then if I've got a 30% increase, then I know that something's off there. Building and grounds, $181,000 to $500,000. $309,000 on repairs on equipment, and you've gone over that, to $750,000. And this is redundant. We've gone over these figures already. But the bottom line is that we've gone from $3 million to $5 million. That's the bottom line. And when I look at, in 2 years, now we have a director, we've got a facilities committee. I guess my vision is like Mr. Mayo's, if he's asking you what your vision is that in 4 years, we look back and say, citizens of Wayne County, this is what you own. You own millions of dollars in facilities, and we've done the right job to get it back where it belongs, whether we repair it, Band-Aid it, whatever you call it, tear it down, build a new building, find new programs. But as we look through and march through the next 4 years, the facilities that the people already own are just as important as what the Board of Education owns or what the community college systems own. These are not bare pieces of property. These have buildings on them. It takes money to invest and to appreciate, not depreciate, these buildings. Right. And from what I'm hearing and what I've seen in the last 6 months is that, look, I commend you. You've come in and taken over a mess. I'm just going to repeat that. And to get it back, we've seen that now it's taken millions of dollars to get the jail back. And we're still not there, I understand. I guess that's my take on facilities, is that this is a huge investment for the taxpayer. And Mr. Smith, you have, Milford, you have taken on a huge animal here, and to get it tamed and to get it right, I appreciate your vision, but it's going to be expensive.
Yeah.
And it's going to be very expensive. And when we look at, in 2 years, we've jumped up here $2 million, then what is it going to be next year, and what is it going to be the year after that? That's my concern.
Well, actually, I had a decrease this year from last year.
Well, last year, the total, 2 years ago, it was the budget was $3,010,000 in 2010, 2011. In 2011 and 12, it was $3,321,000. In fact, the amended budget in 12-13 was $5,307,362. So you've got a $5,061,000. I'm going back 2 years ago, and then I'm going back last year, and then I'm looking at this year. So you've added a lot of labor. You said you were short-staffed. Over 2 years, you've added nearly $600,000. But you got to consider all of the benefits, as we talked about earlier today, and I think you were here, is all of the Social Security matches and hospitalization and retirement, and all of that goes with it. You just don't do that bottom, you've got to get the total picture. But the facilities is just a huge part of what the people have invested.
Absolutely.
In this county.
We want to protect
of
the
their
assets.
dollars, and then we've got to keep it up. Or in 10 years from now, they'll just be falling down and very dangerous to even work in the workplace.
There's a lot of liability.
Absolutely.
In not keeping our buildings out.
That's just.
But as far as staffing, yes, we are filling some staff, but it's still going to take a combination of our in-house people and a lot of help from outside vendors, contractors, so to speak. It's just a huge, spread-out operation.
Just watch every penny you spend.
I do. I'm real conservative.
Any other questions, comments? Thank you, Mr. Smith.
Thank you.
It's 2 o'clock, and it's a pleasure to the board. We can wrap it up now, or you can take another one. But really, Mr. Bell is not here, and it would be nice to make him part of this and not do any further, but.
I agree.
Okay. Mr. Camardi, any finishing statement?
Well, I would just like to, number one, thank the office, Mr. Smith, all of the staff, our attorney, for putting a document in front of us and then working hard to cause us to understand what it's about. I once again like to congratulate Mr. Milford. He's right here with us, and there's other departments that we will have an opportunity to talk to. I very so much appreciate what we do for buildings and grounds and the plants and so forth and so on. But I do not want it to be lost on the fact that I am one of those folk who is always concerned about the welfare of individuals and then collectively. Things like insurance and having to pay high deductibles and those kinds of things, in light of the fact that someone may not get a raise if you increase a deductible, you've just given them a decrease in salary because they have to pay more for deductibles. I want that, keep those kinds of things in mind as we march forward. So I'll hold my comments for right there, but I just want it to be understood that I put a lot of store by people working hard, being true to their work, but being compensated for it also. So, thank you, sir.
Mr. Pate.
Thanks to the staff for putting together this budget, and for the explanations that come with it, because without that, I wouldn't know what to think.
Sometimes you don't want to.
Really, because you look at it and you go, what's this? But I'm glad you were able to step up and let us know. I'm glad to have Miss Pam back, because I know you were looking for her several times today.
Yeah, I was emailing, bam, and she was in Georgia.
Thanks.
Mr. Aycock?
I just want to thank Mr. Smith and the staff for doing the hard work and putting so much time into this budget, and look forward to finishing it.
Mr. Donner?
I too am glad that we got through that first day of budget work. But I'm hoping, I still raise my concern, and that is a budget that is presented to the general public in such a way that it's real easy to read. Here's what happened 2 years ago, here's what happened last year, here's what the current budget is, here's the increase or the decrease, and some explanation. It should be that simple rather than that. So I'm hoping that after we get through with this budget, that we will work on the way to present it to the general public, that we can go online. They can go online, easily read. They want to go to Milford's department and see what line item is expenditured for repairs, then they can go there and see it. And that's what it's all about, really. Because the more information you give to the general public, the less suspicion there is that we're overspending. It gives them a blueprint, and I appreciate it, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Daugherty. Mr. Mayo?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I want to thank our county manager and staff and the commission board. All of us have worked and are still working together to get this budget together and get it implemented by July. I guess to address Mr. Daugherty for a second is that, you know, you can take this and condense it ever how you would like, but the bottom line is that I can promise you, after you get through with this budget this year, next year will be much easier, and I can testify to that. We can change it and do things that make it more readable, but there's still a certain amount of looking and studying that you have to do in order for it to take place. So I'm all in favor of making it simple. One of the things I like to see is that, just as a matter of speaking, one of the things I like to see is I want to be able to see what is actually spent in each department, whether there's a cost shifting done or not. Right now, we're not. But I would like to be able to see what is actually spent in a department and no cost shifting involved. I'd like to be able to look at the budget or the quarterly report and see that figure. And I think that will give us a lot more leeway as to what we can do. But those are just suggestions, and I just thank everyone for we're working hard, and we're going to continue to work hard to make sure that the taxpayers of this county don't pay a dime more than they have to. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome. Thank you, Mr. Mayo. Our finance director was driving probably when we were speaking of this, and probably too busy watching the traffic, which she should have been. But we've planned for you to have a special green book, and it's colored green. And it represents cash. And if there's one thing we've accomplished today, we've accomplished that the revenue resources come from the county tax dollars, from the people, and then what doesn't come, then we realize that. But we have a special book that we want to put together that has all the cash in it, and it shows all the restricted funds and all of the encumbered and not encumbered, and we just like that, like a checkbook, like a savings account that we can take. So when we see these budget amendments from here on out of what we're hearing and what we'll hear Monday, is that we'll understand it a whole lot better. And I think that's just a better layman's term, is looking at a savings account versus an expenditure account. And we've definitely crossed a lot of bridges today. We've got a lot more to go. And then we have to hear the public, and that's going to be exciting. What I'm hearing from the public is they're very, very appreciative of our TV coverage. Very appreciative that they're actually sitting and learning. They're watching it. They never anticipated. You'd be amazed if people have asked me, were you aware of what you were doing when you decided to run for county commissioner? And I said, I had no idea. They said, well, we've had no idea of what you were doing, but until we started watching you on TV, and you guys have more to do
than you can shake a stick at. And I said, well, you got it right. We do. We have a lot to do. But the 7 of us are plugging along here the best we can, as hard as we can, and we're coming down to the inroads. And just appreciate everyone doing what they've done thus far, and we'll continue to move on in this direction. Do I have a motion that we adjourn? Okay, motion's made. Okay, everybody? Yep. Thank you. Meeting's up.